Well, good morning to you and a very warm welcome to day 3 of Sibos 2014. I'm Daisy McAndrew, your host for this week. And happy 1st of the month, 1st of October, we've got there. I'm delighted to say I've been joined by 3 expert journalists and pundits in this area as we take a look at yesterday and chew over what happened, what was said, who did what, who didn't do what, and what's caught your eye. Well, first of all, welcome back Chris Hall from Sibos Issues. Welcome back Kimberley Long from Euromoney, and welcome to the programme Jane Cooper from The Banker. Well, maybe, Chris, if I come to you first, how was yesterday for you? What were your thoughts about the day?
Well, it was a pretty packed day. There was a lot of interesting sessions for our editorial team to attend. Compliance stream getting underway with Adam Zubin. That was a good way to start. Very kind of forthright on. But very detailed and very kind of considered about how he and his agency approach financial crime compliance.
We're going to have a little
issues.
look at some of what he said in just a moment.
But also a lot of interesting stuff also on the kind of technology side, especially in the big issue debate, looking at how kind of e-commerce kind of firms are kind of overtaking this kind of speed of payments. But also there's the kind of threat side of technological advance in terms of the sheer range of kind of cybersecurity threats.
Absolutely. Jane, coming to you, what were your thoughts about yesterday? How did you find it?
Well, we've had a very busy day, lots of back-to-back meetings, and as I was going around the stands, like all the banks are like heaving, like it's been quite a busy conference. They're all back-to-back meetings, and the mood is quite optimistic, I would say, quite positive.
Oh. Kimberley, what were your thoughts about yesterday?
It sounds very similar to Jane's day, to be honest. It was very, very busy yesterday, and equally, yes, everyone is saying there's a real atmosphere of business getting done here this year, which sounds really great to hear. It's not a case of people just mingling or just coming along for the coffee. It's very much a case of everyone's really got very much of a structured day ahead.
There did seem to be that smell in the air yesterday of deals being done, and some serious conversations being done. As I was walking around, certainly, I was very struck by that. Going back to what you were saying just a moment ago, talking about Adam Zubin, of course, Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control. As you mentioned, Chris, he was doing a speech here at Sibos yesterday, and in some ways, I think he was firing a real warning shot.
One area that remains, I think, a particular challenge is the securities industry, where omnibus accounts and the lack of transparency that comes with them have been an industry model for decades. Institutions often have not known who their ultimate customers were, whose accounts and assets they were holding. This opaqueness cannot be the way that business is done in today's world.
Quite strong words there, Kimberley. This cannot be the way that business is done.
I know, it's I think there's just a realization now that things need to really move forwards, and there's a lot of very strong rhetoric going around, I think, at the moment as well. It seems to be a much more open discussion this year. I think there's a much stronger standpoint on different points, so I think it'll be quite interesting to see what comes off the back of it. I
think it's good to see, that on the platform at Sibos there are strong words being spoken, that it's not just, platitudes and people saying the obvious, that actually, there's, as well as deals being done down here on the floor, that, sentiments and real, thoughts are being said on the stage.
Yeah, but I wonder what it's going to take to change. So these omnibus accounts, money's all muddled up. No one knows whose money is where. That's been talked about for a few years, but I just wonder what is it going to take for it to change. So there's strong words. But then also in Sibos Issues this morning, I read that he's saying we're not looking for headlines, we're not looking for scalps, but it's almost like by making an example of banks, that's the only way to make people change.
Chris, what do you make of it? Do you think they are looking for headlines? Do you think they are looking to rock the boat and really make some changes here?
Well, Adam Zubin certainly said, well, we're not going to shy away from making headlines. We do need to make examples to the rest of the industry. If we find that banks are not taking the necessary kind of steps to make sure that they're fully compliant. So it felt kind of slightly kind of mixed messages. But he was saying essentially, if you're going to allow certain behaviours to take place within your bank over a period of time, then you're the ones who are kind of letting yourself in for unpleasant and warranted and headlines that are going to not go down well with your shareholders. Don't blame us when the headlines are about banks getting fined.
Absolutely.
But I think so I just wanted to come back on the kind of the issue about omnibus accounts, which has been quite a hot topic in the industry for a while in relation to the kind of OTC derivatives reforms and the fact that we have had a couple of kind of clearing members go down recently in terms of particularly kind of MF Global, and certainly on the buy side, the investment managers are looking to segregate and protect their assets as much as possible, so and develop new kinds of accounts. So that may actually play alongside Zubin's kind of concern about omnibus accounts.
It'll be very interesting to see what the chatter is about all of that today. And we've already mentioned cybersecurity. It's been discussed a lot on every platform. We've discussed it a lot here in the studio. But there was a very interesting talk yesterday by Kris Lovejoy from IBM, talking about cybersecurity and attacks. And I think she was really trying to explain to the audience that in order to combat these threats, you've really got to know your enemy.
Half of the incidents are going to be perpetrated by insiders, about half by outsiders. Of the outsiders, if you break it down, about 20% or so are sophisticated attackers, and these are associated with organized crime cartels or other, nation-state or other terrorist organizations. You're going to have social activists. So you've heard of Anonymous. These tend to be actually young 17 to 30-year-olds who feel that, attacking a system is a perfectly acceptable form of civil disobedience. And then the third group is going to be insiders who are colluding with outsiders. So it's very hard to sort of distinguish that particular population. Now, when you look at those groups, by and large, what are they doing? Well, in the financial services industry, it's crime. It's just stealing money.
Jane, interesting to see some actual statistics being put on this. This chunk of these crimes are done by this type of person, and this massive chunk being done by, young people who think it's just a form of civil disobedience. But I know that this is something that you have done a lot of investigation on.
Yeah, so the cover story for The Banker for the Sibos issue was on cybercrime, and I focused on one of the things that was mentioned there on state-sponsored attacks. And what's really frightening about that is the unlimited resources that governments have. In the past, one of my interviewees was saying, in the past, governments used to look at cyber criminals because the banks are where the money is, so cyber criminals have always tried to get into banks. So in the past, governments used to watch the criminals and the hackers and think, wow, this is really good. But now it's switched. Now the criminals and the hackers are looking at the nation states. They're the ones with really amazing capabilities, and it's quite frightening.
And you've spotted a story in today's FT.
Yeah, so it's not just an issue at Sibos or just for banks. So on the FT this morning, for corporate, cyber attacks rise by 48%, but security budgets slide. So it just cybersecurity is a big issue everywhere.
I mean, that's a startling figure, isn't it? It can be 48% reported in the FT, and of course, as Jane was implying there, it's going to take not just time and effort, but a lot of money to combat this type of attack.
Yes, it's quite the issue, and I was kind of discussing it yesterday in some of the meetings, and there is this recognition that it needs to be addressed, that there is a problem there, but it's just what form this is actually going to take and how they are going to structure this to make sure they can, get an effective response in. I mean, the nature of things changes all the time, so it's quite a difficult one to know where attacks can come from. And like Jane says about the state-sponsored attacks, it goes beyond this kind of idea as well of just the disgruntled 17-year-old. It's actually, this is a very serious kind of threat.
Exactly. Kris, what was your feeling when you were hearing people discussing this issue yesterday?
Well, it just seemed to me that the area of cybersecurity clearly is one that's going to evolve and develop over time. I know there was a lot of talk in the session yesterday about how one allocates one's kind of cybersecurity budget between kind of detection and protection measures, but it did seem that that this is something that banks are going to have to allocate an increasing amount of resource to, and also kind of make use of third-party expertise, because I think
Yes.
we've had the experience of how it took a long while for the industry to get together to address some of the financial crime compliance issues and kind of start to go down the path on working together on utilities such as the SWIFT KYC registry, and it seems that cybercrime is again one of those issues where whether it's a utility model, but certainly some levels of collaboration, so they don't they need pool resources rather than kind of finding their own individual solutions.
And maybe up the pace.
The problem with that is with the state-sponsored. So with the state-sponsored attacks, you've got this new dynamic where it becomes, let's say we have a cyber war scenario. So the industry here is all sort of collaborating, and it's a global industry, and we need to collaborate there. But if there's a nation state and it's a political thing, then politics gets in the way of everything as well.
Yes, exactly. You don't know who's on which side.
Yeah, exactly.
is
Yeah,
the
so
problem.
that's a problem.
We've just got a few more seconds. What's everybody looking forward to today? What are you expecting to report on today?
Oh, very busy day ahead again. I think just I'm kind of focusing more on the technology vendors today with all my meetings, so I'm quite interested to hear what they have to say about things like this, and also how they're looking to help work with the banks more and push forward a bit more on the technology. So it's a very interesting time. There's been so many deals and collaborations agreed this week. I think it's going to be interesting to hear what the outcome of those are going to be.
It's good to hear. Jane, what's in your intro today?
Is it Wednesday today? Yes.
Where are we? What day is it?
So today is the Inner Tribe Startup Challenge. Is that right? Yeah. So I think that would be interesting to see who will win that.
Well, we will certainly be talking to some Inner Tribe people today. Chris, what about you? What does today hold?
Well, I guess there'll be quite a lot of focus on the big issue debate on regulation, moderated by Gillian Tett of the FT. And that's got representatives from there's Deutsche Bank is speaking, but they've also they've got a representative from BlackRock, so you get the kind of the bank's customers' view on how regulation is changing the environment in which banks operate. So that's going to be interesting.
Lovely.
As well.
Well, we'll have to wait until tomorrow to see how that's all reported. Busy days ahead for all three of you. Thank you so much for sparing some time for us this morning, this breakfast time. Many thanks to Kimberley Long, Jane Cooper and Chris Hall. That's all from Sibos TV for the moment. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.